Hi everyone, welcome to lecture 17. In this lecture, I'm talking about reading and writing txt files and how to parse .txt files in Python. Python uses file objects to interact with external files on your computer, and these files can be of any sort. But we are focusing on .txt files, especially on how to read these files, how to write it to a new file, and how to parse these files, and then later on manipulate them. So let's quickly go to Spider and see how this works. The first thing I'm trying to do is to go and open an already existing .txt file. Let me quickly show you how that is. So this is a test.txt file that's already saved in my working directory. My working directory is something that's visible over here. You can also go and save your txt file somewhere else and then read from there. The only difference is, however, going to be that you'll have to specify the path. Now in this case, I'm not specifying the path because my file is already saved in my working directory. Now let me go and create a variable into which I'm going to read my file. Naming it as my file. The function that's used to read is called open. And then I can simply go and say test.txt because that's the name of my file. And the second parameter could be the mode that you want your file to open in. So right now I'm trying to read it. R is for reading, W is for writing, and those are the two that we are exploring today. Now once I'm done with opening my file and saving the object in this variable, I could go and apply different methods on this object. The first method, and that's the most useful one, is to go and read it because that was our final goal. Now as you can see, I can see the contents of my file here with the \n introduced in between, which kind of tells us that there is a new line after every line, right? After this content, there is a new line and so on. So \n means exactly what we've been using it as in Python, right? Now notice if I do this my file dot read one more time, I get these empty quotes, nothing in there, which essentially points to the idea that this reading cursor is at the end of the file, and after having read everything, there is nothing left to read. Now, if you really want to go back and read it, you should have used myfile.close, and then you can reopen it and then read it, as you can see. Now, let me close it again. Or in fact, before closing, we can look at another function that you might find useful, which is myfile.seek. Now this can also take back the cursor to the initial position, and then when I go back and do this dot read, I still get the contents of my file. Some other important functions, or methods rather, used in reading are readline or readlines. Readline would read the contents of my file one line at a time. For example, I opened it and then this will give me one line, and then if I run it again, it gives me the second line and so on, right? So this was about reading .txt files. How about writing into .txt files? So I'm not doing anything fancy, but I would take the content of my test.txt and I would put them in another .txt file, which would be saved into my computer. And again, when I'm saying into my computer, I'm saving everything right here. As you can see, it's my working directory. If you want to save it somewhere else, specify the entire path. Now open, again I would open the file because this is the contents that I'm interested in, right? And this has to be in read mode right now because I'm reading it and saving it in this new file. Let me run this. This runs fine. Now I need another variable to save the contents once it's opened, and I'm using new for that. So new underscore file, and then it's just like the previous one, read and put everything into new. Now having done that, I need another pointer to another new file which actually does not exist, right? So for that, I will create another variable, and again notice that I'm using the function open again, but here I could name a file and then write into it, a file that does not exist. So I'm naming it as new test1 .txt, so I have to specify that, and then the mode is different now. It's write because I am in the writing mode now. I'm no more in a reading mode, right? So this is telling the interpreter that go and open a new file that's empty because I'm in writing mode right now, right? So just go and open or create that. New test1.txt. So this is created. Now I need to write something into it. The way I do that is again final underscore file, which is my object, right? And then I would say go and write, dot write, just like dot read, this is a dot write function, but you need to specify what do you want to write. And I want to write new because that's where my contents of my file are saved. You could even specify a string directly and that should work fine, right? And then let's do this. This tells me the character, how many characters were there in your file, which is not of great significance right now, but it is sometimes, right? Final underscore file dot close. Now this is a good convention. This is something important to remember, that always close the file. Okay, now if you go and check new test, and this was the file that I created earlier, I even have new test, I should have new test1 also created. As you can see, this also has the contents that we wanted it to have. Now the other part that I want to cover in this video is parsing, and this is more to do with the convention, the overall convention of how we would parse a bigger file, because we would be dealing with bigger files going forward. Let's look at this Yelp data. This is the data from Yelp.com. It gives us information about different restaurants and then their location, which is the second and the third value, their address, and then their ratings. And notice that every value, like after the name, the location, and everything is separated by these delimiters, these separators. Now, a common method of reading in such files, or parsing as we call them, is to usually read every line in and convert everything to a list, because that makes the processing of this data easier, right? So I'm going to show you a small example of reading this Yelp data. So I'm creating this Yelp data variable, and then let's use this user input so that it could be some other file as well. So I'm asking the user to enter the file name. For example, in my case, it's yelp.txt. In some other case, it could be something else. I do not know how the user is going to enter, so I'm using .strip to remove the spaces, right? Now next comes the actual parsing part, which I'm doing using loops, looping for parsing. Now this is something that you might want to remember, because this is more of a pseudocode than the actual code. So I'm going to show you how we're reading each and every line. For line, which goes back to what we said earlier, for line in open the file name. So in my case, it's yelp.txt. Let me just close this window, which is yelp.txt. And let's say I just want these words, like these lines, to be separated into a list, right? And I just am saving each line in this variable called words. The way I do that is I'll just create a variable, I'm naming it words, and then just say line dot strip. Why? Because I just want to get rid of all the spaces before even moving on, and then do a dot split. And in the dot split, if you remember, you could do it split by character, right? Let me go and print just the restaurant names in my Yelp file. The way to do that, now this words would be a list of all these values that are shown here. It would be a list of the restaurant name, the latitude, the longitude, the address, and so on. So now, if I would just want to go and print the restaurant names, I would do words and 0, right? Let me do this parsing just to print this. That would end today's lecture. So my name is yelp.txt, and it's printing just the names of the restaurants, as you can see, because that's at position 0. Now what's getting created here, if you go back and check what's in words, and then it should have like the final list, is this list of things, right? The name of the restaurant, the latitude, the longitude, everything is separated in the form of a list. And now we can work with this, which makes our life so much easier. With this, I would want to end this lecture, and in the next lecture, I'll talk about sets. Thank you.